Aquí está. Bueno, bienvenido, Eric. Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros y bienvenidos y gracias también a todos los que están ahora en la sala. Y les voy a contar un poco de Eric para hacer la presentación. Bueno, Eric trabaja en TRG Arts, que es una consultora que se enfoca principalmente en la sostenibilidad financiera de los teatros, y Eric es el vicepresidente y Global Partnership de esta organización. Ellos trabajan en el área de la cultura en distintos sectores, no solamente en el performing arts o en los teatros, sino que también en la parte de artes visuales y otras organizaciones. Voy a dejar ahora a Eric que les cuente un poco más en detalle de él. Y solo para que sepan, yo voy a estar en el chat traduciendo lo que Eric vaya diciendo para aquellos que no tengan más dificultad con el inglés. Y cualquier pregunta que tengan también la pueden dejar en el chat para ir preguntándosela inmediatamente a Eric, o si quedan algunos minutos después también podamos tener una conversación. Así que le dejo la palabra entonces a Eric. Eric, bienvenido. Eric, welcome. Please, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can kick off with the presentation. I'm going to be writing in the chat as fast as I can what you're saying. So welcome.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Paulina. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you all for welcoming me in. I really appreciate you taking the time and eager to discuss customers and audiences and what are they coming back? If they are, where are they coming from? As Paulina mentioned, I work for TRG Arts. We are a consulting firm that specializes in audience growth. So we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. A little bit about me. I'm located in New York City, and I've been working at TRG Arts for about 7 years, but my background includes experiences both on the consulting side, but also inside at organizations. Before joining TRG, I ran marketing and fundraising for a performing arts center here in New York City. And prior to that, I ran marketing for the Paul Taylor Dance Company, also housed here in New York. So I've dabbled in a wide range of different genres in the arts. And I'm always excited to think about how to grow audiences and how to grow revenue for arts organizations. So we're going to look at some data that I've been researching at TRG to help understand what audience comebacks have looked like. So I will say, as we're going through this, you'll get a copy of this deck, of this presentation. So we'll be sending that back to Paulina and Alejandra after the presentation. So I know that will be emailed out to you all, and you'll also get my contact information in case you have any questions. Always happy to address anything in this meeting as well as follow-ups. So with that in mind, I'm going to share my screen and my presentation today. So you'll let me know if you can't see it, and also feel free to interrupt me with questions along the way. Put them in the chat. I want to make sure, especially as we're looking at some data together, that you all are that's getting any questions addressed that you may have about that. So our customers coming back, what does it look like? Well, I always like to begin a presentation with a data point that has caught my eye, and one that has gained a lot of attention in the states where I live, is this idea of the couch. The couch is our biggest competition, not other performing arts organizations, but the couch. There actually was a study that came out last year that said in North America, people who like going to the arts, who typically buy tickets to the performing arts, operas, dance companies, theaters, music, when given the choice on a Saturday night to go out and see a performance or stay home and be on the couch, they'd rather do that. They would pick the couch over going out. And it makes sense, because there's things like, cute dogs on the couch, comfy attire, on-demand entertainment. So what we're competing with as arts organizations has grown tremendously, and the couch is our latest competitor we need to be mindful of. So how do we understand that better and build strategies to address that? Well, at TRG, we are a data-driven consulting firm, as Paulina mentioned. We work in the US, Canada, the UK, Ireland, Australia. We're going to be sharing some data with you from those different areas, all based on helping organizations grow engagement from customers or patrons, whatever you might call them, to try to find new folks, prospects. So we work with clients to develop strategies to get new people in the door of your venues, to move them up so they become repeat buyers, multi-buyers. Then they become, depending on if you have that product line or not, subscribers, donors, and then lifelong advocates of your organization. So that's the evolution that we partner with organizations on to grow that. We also love data. So every project that we start is grounded in data. So we use data to drive our strategy creation. So in today's presentation, we're going to do a data dive. We're going to look at some data that we've been collecting and analyzing. Then we're going to think a little bit about the patron mindset, what our customers are thinking about at this moment in time, and how we can capitalize on that to engage them to come back. And then I've got a provocation for you all for this year. And then if we have time, some questions at the end. But we're going to start with data. As you've now heard the D word a number of times, we are big researchers and data geeks at TRG. So we're going to look at some research we've been studying. And early on in the pandemic, TRG started this arts and cultural benchmark to help understand the revenue impact of COVID on our ticket sales and donations. And now it has grown to the point where there are 400 organizations internationally, UK, Ireland, the US, and Canada, who are sharing their ticketing and donation data with us on a daily basis. And we're analyzing that data. It's about 250 million transactions. So it's a large data set that we're looking at, and quarterly putting out reports about what we're learning from the data set. So we're going to go into some of that. And we're going to start with ticket sales. So we're going to look at a year perspective and start with the US and Canada, and what ticket sales have looked like when you compare January through December of 2022, so the year we just ended, versus January through December of 2019, so the pre-pandemic year. So how did the last year compare to the last year before the pandemic? And again, ticket sales here. When you compare those 2 years together, we are still in North America. Revenue is down 17% in 2022 versus pre-pandemic, and units, or number of tickets sold, down 24%. This is actually good news. If we were to look at this comparing 2021 to 2019, so even a year before that, these numbers would be almost twice as large in terms of deficit. So we're actually making significant progress. So that's exciting. When we look at the same data, 2022 versus 2019, this time it's the UK and Ireland, we see revenues down only 11%, and number of tickets is down 17%. So if we compare these back together, the UK and Ireland is having a faster comeback than the US and Canada. So people ask, well, why is that? The UK and Ireland actually opened venues up faster than the US did. So they started engaging folks and inviting them back quicker. And as a result, people have gotten back into the habit faster than in the US and Canada. So interesting data there. So where do we start to see this, the returns happen? So this is the US and Canada data, again, 2022 versus 2019. And now we're looking at it on a month-by-month basis. The blue line here is revenue in 2019. The purple line is revenue in 2022. The yellow line is number of tickets in 2019. and the green line is number of tickets in 2022. And what we see here, really exciting, November of 2022 was the first month since the pandemic started that we've seen revenue outpace pre-pandemic amounts. So in November, the number of the dollars for tickets that we sold in North America outsold 2022 versus 2019. So I think there was a lot of pent-up demand and interest in holiday programming. That was when we looked programmatically back at what people were purchasing. That was the greatest driver. So when people ask what's bringing people back, it seems to be big name programming or things that relate to special events like the holidays that are motivating people to come back. Really interesting. A slightly different story in the US or in the UK and Ireland, same data set, same color scheme here, but we actually saw earlier in 2022 a number of months that outpaced faster 2019. So May here actually was the first time that revenue outpaced pre-pandemic amounts. So what they did was starting to put renewals on sale, and that drove some attention early last spring. And then October was also a really strong month as they were really putting a push behind holiday programming. So exciting to see those having 2 months instead of one, where 2022 revenue outpaced 2019. Yeah, so you see those 2 months here of some optimism. So people will ask us, well, Eric, people are still slow to coming back as the data is showing. Should we be holding back on ticket prices? Should we, hold those steady? Should we actually even cut back on ticket prices? So we looked at the average ticket price that people have been paying in 2019 versus 2022. You could think of this as per capita revenue, if that's a way that you describe it. But we see here 2019 month by month in yellow, 2022 in blue. And we can see here that for almost all of 2022, average ticket amounts paid was higher than in 2019. So what it tells us is when people are coming back, they're actually purchasing more expensive tickets than what they did pre-pandemic. So I think one of the things they're doing is if they are going to go back to a performing arts organization, a night out to go see a performance, they want to treat it as it's something special. So they're buying the more expensive tickets. So encouraging to see. So we would say don't hold back or don't dial back ticket prices. There's some strength there, at least in the North American economy. Similar on the UK and Ireland, 2022 again here in blue, 2019 in the yellow, with the exception of the end of the year, you see that dip in November. That's when inflation was starting to rise more in the UK, which really some challenging economic times in that country. So you see some of that retrenchment back, but then starting to lift back up again in December. We're still tracking this, so we will continue to look at this as 2023 unfolds and we look at our research around the first quarter of this year. But still some strength there. We would still say hold ticket prices or think about the potential to raise because there is some strength in the economy. Okay, so that's ticket sales. So what's going on the other side of the coin, which would be donations? So same data set, same comparison, 2019 versus 2022. And you see here in the US that revenue is down 25% in 2022 versus 2019. And number of tickets or number of gifts, gift units down 12%. So if we were to hop in that same time machine and look at this in the end of 2021 versus 2019, this would have been a very different story in the US and Canada. Actually, at the end of 2021, gift revenue was actually up by about 12%, and units were down 12%. So we actually were getting more gifts, much more larger gifts in than we saw in 2022. And we're trying to understand why that happened. We think on one hand, there was some donor fatigue. People really stepped up in the pandemic and gave during that first year of the depths of it. So they gave more than they normally would. So perhaps they retrenched or held back a little bit in 2022, or there was some fatigue there. So that's one potential reason why. Interesting, in the UK, our revenue not down a little bit, but not as far, but number of units up. So while the US was getting larger gifts, the UK is actually getting more gifts, but at a smaller dollar amount. So as they opened back up again, you heard me say opened up a little earlier than North America did. They're actually seeing their patrons having some excitement and saying, we're really happy that you did that. So we want to participate back and make sure you continue to stay open. So some new people giving gifts there, hence driving up the number of new units coming in. So interesting to see. When we look at the month-by-month comparison, same data set, the way we looked at it for tickets, but this one is donations. We see some really interesting thing happen, especially in North America, where the end of the calendar year, December tends to be the month that drives one of the biggest, it's one of the biggest drivers of revenue, of donation revenue in the US. You see here in 2019, it was the second biggest month. This purple, or this blue line was the biggest month in 2019. And then we look at the purple here in 2022, we were down significantly. So perhaps that fatigue of folks giving really set in towards the end of the year. So it would lead us to believe, if you are experiencing this as well, to start reaching out to those donors who typically would give towards the end of the year and find out what happened. So a lot of our clients are doing phone campaigns to reach out, or calling those folks and saying, hey, what happened? You typically give at the end of the year. Why didn't you do that this year? So that research hasn't come back to us yet, but we're eager to learn what happened that way. UK and Ireland, very different story. So actually some really strong strength in donating over the summer. So you see here in purple, the revenue lines again, strong June, really strong August. July was down. Let's see the difference. This was 2019. July is the blue, the August 2019. Almost looks like it flipped. So perhaps people just took a little longer to give their gifts, but the net result was about the same. And the end of the year, December was actually higher in 2022 than 2019. So again, some really interesting different trends between those different markets. Again, perhaps because the UK and Ireland opened up faster, they brought more confidence to their customers that way. What's happening in terms of average gifts, like we looked on the ticketing side. So you see here, again, 2019 is in the yellow, 2022 is in the blue. So most of the year in the US and Canada, the average gift size has been below, with some smaller spikes up like you see here in August. And then we look in the UK and Ireland, kind of all over the place a little bit. Some months higher, some months lower, 2019 in yellow, 2022 in blue. Again, some interesting things to think about, especially as the UK has had more donors come back than the US has had. Okay, so now that we see some general trends, can we dive into and start thinking about who's actually coming back? So we've been looking at this through two different lenses. One is generational, and the second is something we call typology or segmentation. So generation-wise, we've looked at, again, between 2019 and 2022, what percentage of households have we lost in our collective data set in the US and Canada? So all these North American organizations that are participating in that data set that we're looking at, 400 count, of those groups, what percentage by generation of audiences have we lost or gained? And you see here, Gen Z, all the way up to greatest generation, and we've got the age group associated with each of these generations. So what percentage of those folks, households, have we lost between 2019 and 2022? So for example, here, millennials, we had 10% more millennial households buying tickets in 2019 than we had in 2022. And we had pretty much a loss across every generation, but it's much more significant if you were to draw a line here from the baby boomers and on up. So folks who are 60 years and older, we've lost those households at much greater amounts, 45% of baby boomers, 55% of silent generation, 52% of greatest generation versus Gen Z millennials and Gen Xers. We've only lost 6% of Gen Zers, 10% of millennials, and 31% of Gen Xers, which would lead us to believe that who's coming back, which audiences are actually buying tickets, are coming from the younger generation. So we're seeing more younger people being willing to come back faster than we're seeing older generations, which sort of makes sense. At least in the US, there's lots of talk about older folks still being concerned about going out because of COVID. And as folks age out of going to the arts, these oldest generations, even the greatest generation, 96 plus, the likelihood of those people coming back after the pandemic is very low because of just how old they are. So our opportunity is to engage more young people to be coming back. So what does that look like in the UK and Ireland? It's a little less stark. So there's actually more loss of younger generations. Gen Z, 21% loss of audience, millennials, 34% loss, Gen Xers, 34%, baby boomers, 44%, silent generation, 55%. So it's more even here. That still doesn't mean we shouldn't be trying to engage young people coming back. They are coming back faster, just not as fast as they are in the US and Canada. And one other piece that could be related to that is the US, as we've noticed, has been really leaning into family programming and developing more family programming during the pandemic. So that might be one of the other reasons why we're seeing some greater or less loss on from those younger generation sides. So super interesting to think about that and who's coming back. The other piece then, if we look at generation as one segment, one area or one lens in which to look at comeback, the other is typology or segmentation. And we would recommend using this model called RFMG. R stands for recency, F stands for frequency, M stands for monetary investment, and G stands for growth over time. So the people in your databases, how recently have they been? How frequently have they come? How much money are they spending with you? And are they growing their engagement? Are they going from single ticket buyers to multi-buyers? Are they going from multi-buyers to subscribers? Are they going from multi-buyers to donors? So are you seeing growth in your data set from all four of these categories? R, recency, frequency, monetary investment, and growth. And one way you can think about that or categorize them within your data set is this model. Acquisition, so think about new customers, people who haven't been before, so that's one category or segment. Second is current customers, people who are in your database who are coming with some level of regularity. So you've got once before, people who've now come 2 times, but they've been at least once before in the last 18 months. Convertees, twice before with at least 1 time happening in the last 18 months. Active customers, 3 to 9 times in their history with at least 1 time being in the last 18 months. And super actives, 10 plus times in their history with at least once in the last 18 months. So you've got new customers, brand new people are coming in for the first time. And then you've got this second grouping, current customers who are at various stages of their RFMG journey with you. And these are ways to categorize them. And then re-engaged folks. So you've got stale people whose last attendance was in the last 18 to 36 months, or lapsed people who haven't been in 3+ years. So this gives you a way to segment within your data set and say things like, oh, if we can get these once befores to become convertees, that's a goal we can set and give them invitations and offers to try to come back. Or can we grow the convertees to actives? Can we grow actives to super actives? Allows you to set put forth different messaging and different goals for each of these different segments. So who is coming back within this structure? So Again, US and Canada. Look, now this is expanding it a little bit more. So not just looking at 2019 versus 2022, but this is 2019 versus 2021 and 2022. The green line is 2019, the blue is 2021, and the more electric green is 2022. And you see here from that categorization, those new folks, those current people all rolled up into a category, and the re-engaged folks, how much or what percentage of our current ticket buyers, people are coming back, what percentage of that overall makeup is coming from these three categories. And you see something really interesting. When you look at 2022, that brighter green, our ticket buying is having a greater percentage of sales coming from new folks than previously had in 2021 or 2019. So 2022, we're motivating in the US and Canada a lot of new people to try us and buy tickets, which sort of makes sense when you think of that generational view again. Like if younger people are coming back, most of them are getting on their journeys with us for the very first time. So it makes sense that they're making up a greater proportion of our new buyers. Super interesting, our current buyers, people who traditionally come with regularity, they're taking a longer time to come back. And our re-engaged folks are sort of in the middle. They're coming back faster than they did in 2019, but slower than 2022. So we would say keep investing in new. Really reach out to your folks who traditionally have come but haven't come back yet, and try to ask them to come back and get them coming with more regularity. And those people who haven't been in a while but are starting to show up, thank them and see if you can get them on the path of regularity so they get into one of those categories like active or super actives. When we look at this in the UK and Ireland, similar story. New folks, brand new buyers are still making up the greatest percentage of our ticket sales, and there's growth there, so exciting. Current customers in the UK are coming back with a little more frequency than what's happening in North America, so perhaps there's a little more confidence with those people. And then the re-engaged folks are also coming back with some strength, though new is still the greatest. So keep investing in your plans to get new people in the door, because at least in North America and the UK and Ireland, it looks like it's working. So it's worth the investment. So some data to say like who's coming, but what are some of the drivers? What is the patron mindset that we're seeing that's driving behavior? So I'm going to share some data from some other companies. Like I said, you'll get this research, so you'll be able to follow up with some of these. So this is a group out of Canada called Nanos. They do a lot of research in the Canadian market, and they've been asking quarterly questions to cultural buyers, what's motivating their attendance. And this was a really interesting study that came out in October of last year. So they asked these questions about what's motivating you. So the last time they asked it was in May, and then they updated it in October. And when you look at what's driving people to come, what they want in their programming, some growth here about from 32% to 40%. They want the programming to be something interesting and fun. So if we want to go out, we want that to be a celebration. We want it something that is entertaining. So interesting to see that that's at the top of the list. Also, this is data that has been shared recently by Wolf Brown and AMS. They run the Audience Outlook Monitor, which does qualitative research around patron needs and what people want, motivators again. So they do a lot of survey and focus group work. And some things I want to point out about this, the studies they've been showing, is when you think about what are motivators to come back, this first thing here is they want the opportunity to socialize, both with the people they go with. They want to get to know the artist. So that's high on the list of what people want. They also want their choice of seats. So they want to be able to look at the seating venue and see what they can choose from. And also they want, not all organizations allow this, but some interest in enjoying a cocktail or a drink while they're in the venue or your auditoriums as they're enjoying your programming. So some interesting additional motivators. So when you're thinking about your invitations to welcome people back, how can you craft those to take in mind what people need and want? Really important. Some other motivators here is this is data shared by the New York City Visitation Bureau. So when I know so many of you, not just in your markets but around the world, are dependent on tourism. As tourism goes up, more arts tickets tend to sell. And one thing that the New York Visitation Bureau has pointed out is that by 2024, they expect tourism in New York City to be back to pre-pandemic levels. So you see here 66 million people coming. They're expecting it back to 70 million in 2024. And why this is important is New York tourism tends to drive or be an indicator of what tourism around the globe looks like. So if New York's coming back, that tends to mean that other markets will come back soon after that. And where travel to New York will come from in 2022 versus 2023. The 2022 amount of tourism is in this gray line, and you see the different countries listed here where they expect tourism, or where tourism is coming from, and where the growth they expect to happen in 2023. So almost across the board, the expectation is there will be greater travel from all of these countries. So if that's, if we're seeing growth here into New York, hopefully that means that there will be additional growth in other markets as well, also from a wide range of different countries, which is exciting to get to see. So just to wrap things up and then get us into a portion where we can ask some questions, I have a provocation for you all to think about for 2023. So reimagine your offerings and your programming to your patrons. And why is reimagining necessary at this moment? Well, one, I would say, what year are we in? So many of you might watch the fireworks that happen in Australia every year for New Year's. So you would say, yeah, Eric, you're asking me what year we're in. We're in 2023. Of course, we're in 2023. We all know that. But are we really? So back in 2020, a number of research institutions put out reports to predict what 2023 would look like in terms of education, healthcare, entertainment, and how that would have changed from 2022, and how our patrons, our customers will interact, how I will interact with these different areas in 2023. They're trying to make some predictions. One in particular, there's a company called McKinsey that has done reporting on this. And they're actually saying, because of what happened during the pandemic, there was so much technological innovation that happened during this time, and customer, individual, patron needs changed so much that we're actually already in 2023. Some of the things they predicted to happen in 2023 are already taking place. You could just think about ChatGPT as one of those things that has moved along much faster than anyone would have expected. So they've also shared, actually Google shared this information about how the mindset of customers have changed or had changed during the pandemic. So by the end of 2022, people have different priorities. Our customers have different priorities. They want things to be as convenient as possible. So, the online ticket purchases need to be as easy as possible. The apps we use to display the tickets need to be as easy as possible. Our customers also have new escapes. So they have new things they're interested in. And does our programming align with that? They have a greater sense of well-being. Number 3 here, new me, new we. Self-care is really important. So, things like, when is the right time to start the show? What is when does the curtain go up? How does that deal with people being able to fit in productions into their daily lives? Things like new priorities. You see here, one of my favorite lines in this is filtering out what's irrelevant. So it's even more important that the messages we put out there via mail or email or through social media or through channels like WhatsApp, they need to be as they need to relate to our customers as best as possible. They don't want messages that they don't care about. And new accountability, especially as people care more and more about the environment. Are you all as brands, are you showing up in ways that align with your customers' values? And people want to see that in the organizations they invest in, especially around like publishing things like reports to show your impact in your markets. Are you describing that in such a way that aligns with your values as well as your customer values? So, as we think about how patrons have changed, what needs to happen in terms of entertainment to meet the challenge of 2030? And McKinsey would say that by 2030, which they're saying sort of already here, arts and entertainment needs to be much more immersive, gamified. So, even things like, when you buy your tickets, I do this with, the airline tickets I purchase, I see on my app this little plane move forward as I've gained more points towards my loyalty program. So are we gamifying the way that people integrate or interact with us? Are we offering more diversity on our stages and in our programming to better reflect our communities? And the big one here, technology everywhere, as you heard me say, making our technological tools as easy as possible. As we've studied this over the years, sort of the biggest reason or two of what drives people, first timers, away from making a second purchase is clunky technology or hard to navigate websites, or problems logistically, getting to the venue, figuring out where to park, or feeling welcomed in the venue. It's not so much about the programming itself, but was the technology easy, and did those new people feel welcomed into the experience, and could they navigate their way through it? So I will leave you with this. What can you be doing about it? I'll bring these all up. But listen to your patrons more research, more surveys, find out what was working for them, what isn't, and integrating that feedback into your offers and programming. Measuring, be consistent about the benchmarks you're setting for yourself in terms of growth, and continue to use that same set of stats over and over again to keep tracking. Invite patrons back as quickly as possible. So if someone comes to one of your programs, one of your operas, get them to come to that next opera as soon as possible. So think like, the next invitation, the welcome back is, by the next morning after the first performance they attended. Surprise them, be clever. Don't always ask them to give money or buy something. Offer them other things to help round out their values. So surprise and delight them, and evolve. Be ready and willing to change with your marketing strategies, your development strategies, and the programming that you're offering. I will throw this up here at TRG. I'm always happy to do, I call them hours of free consulting, no obligation, but if you want to talk further or puzzle through any strategies that you're doing, I'm happy to spend an hour talking through that with you. You see here is a link to a tool I use to schedule meetings. It's called Calendly. So you're going to get a copy of this presentation, but feel free to take this URL address, paste it into your browser, and if you want to book some time with me, like I said, have a free hour to talk through some ideas, happy to do that. And then I will pause it here and ask to see if we have any questions that have come in. Actually, I'll stop the share so it'll be easier to see everybody. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Eric, so much. That was so enlightening. And I hope if someone is reading the chat can make sense of all the information I was trying to get through. But it was very clear. And I think the trends that you showed from the US and the UK are probably quite similar to what's happening in Latin America. I'm gonna switch to Spanish. Bueno, muchísimas gracias, Eric, por todo. Espero que el chat haya resistido un poco el bombardeo de información que traté de poner ahí, que fue muy clara, muy completa y abrimos ahora el espacio para las preguntas que las pueden dejar en el chat o pueden también abrir los micrófonos. Pero creo yo, y aquí se lo comento, se lo pregunto a Eric, o lo comento con él, que las tendencias que si bien son de Estados Unidos y del Reino Unido, son bastante similares a lo que hemos visto en Latinoamérica. No sé si alguien quiera comentar algo al respecto. María José, si en Ecuador ustedes ven más o menos un fenómeno similar respecto a que están volviendo las audiencias jóvenes más que las mayores y cómo ven el panorama. O si alguien más quiere comentar.
Sí, primero, thank you very much, Eric. It was a very enlightening information, and thank you for sharing with us. And first of all, I wanted to share that we now in Quito, yeah, we have seen the same like phenomenon that the young people are coming back faster. We and also the immersive experiences are also more attractive to people.
Yeah.
However, we now have a very challenging issue. It's linked with security. Our country is now passing through a severe crisis, feeling very insecure to come into the public spaces and into the theaters, because we have this like guerrilla coming between the drug trafficking. So this is coming into the big cities. So I would like to ask you an idea of how to switch our to switch our discourse, to switch our speech, to bring people back, to help people back to the public spaces and to the theaters.
Yeah, it's a really great question. And how to, engage those people back or make them feel comfortable or, safe in that experience. It's really interesting. We tried this strategy. So when we look at the research, most people, when they think about going out or having an activity like going to the arts, they look to their friends, family, neighbors to get thoughts and advice on if they should go. So we see this trend get even more it's more prevalent even in the pandemic. So it's interesting, they trust less reviews and outside influence. They want to hear from their friends and family. So we actually started doing this with some clients in the US. So it's a little counterintuitive to some organizations, but they wanted to convince people to feel more confident to try to come out. So at the beginning of a performance, what they would do is they would say, actually take out your phones, get your phone out, and don't take a picture of the stage. Take a picture of everyone in the audience with you right now and post that, to your friends or on your social media to say, I'm here with other people and we all have confidence in coming back. And what that did is people were fearful to think like, oh, they didn't know if people were going back or not. So that the fact that they actually literally got to see people in the venue made them think, oh, other people are doing that, so I should do that too. Then we would tell them that, in where I live, people still we don't let people have their phones out during our performance. So we don't want them to take pictures. So then we would say, now put your phone away after you've taken that picture. But just giving that sense and some way to show others that they were doing that. So that was one thing. And then two is to do some surveying, like after they're leaving the venue. You could have just even a survey they could easily fill out, or you could email that, but asking them to say one thing they were glad about for coming to attend again. And one of the things as we've done this, we've seen this really interesting statement have a lot of traction, which is a lot of people saying, I'm so glad I came. I forgot how much I loved going to, fill in the blank, the opera, the dance, or whatever. And then using those quotes, in marketing materials to then, it doesn't solve the fact that people are going to have to deal with, there's some of this lack of safety out there. But if you can show that other people are doing it and leaning in, that might encourage others to feel a sense of confidence coming back.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Sure.
That's great. Thank you, Eric, for those tips, which are very useful in not only like in security issues, but I think also like just to come back to the theater and show that people is around you and you are within a group of people and you are safe. No sé, ¿alguien más? Dentro del formulario que dejamos, algunos participantes dejaron unas preguntas y se las voy a compartir a Erika a ver si nos puede responder alguna. Eric, there were a couple of questions left in the registration form that we did.
Okay.
One of them is, what strategies have been carried out to attract potential audience and particularly the young audiences? Do you have any examples or any references?
Yeah, indeed. One of the really interesting ones is, so this might feel a little counterintuitive to everyone on the call today, but especially if you're having bigger name programming coming in. So, in the opera world, we always see that Madame Butterfly sells really well, or Carmen, there's some of these big name stuff, or if you're doing something holiday associated, putting certain bigger name things on early with some pre-sales and inviting new customers to have early access to purchasing tickets before maybe they go on sale to the general public, so that they have an easier time getting something. So targeting them that way can be really interesting and helpful. The other is, we've seen some organizations, and Maria Jose, this might also answer the question you just asked earlier, is asking people to come a little earlier. And if you have some celebratory element, like a drink in the lobby beforehand, or something that allows you to, getting there a little earlier, like makes you get through security faster or whatnot. But if you have hey, for tonight, we're welcoming new customers and we have a wine tasting or something, and gives you a chance to, when those new people come, to welcome them and start talking with those folks. One of the biggest things we hear when first timers come, you heard me talk about it a little bit, is that they don't feel welcome coming in the venue because they've never been before, and it feels scary and overwhelming to come. So if you have a way to welcome them in, make them feel comfortable in the space before the performance starts, and offer something like that, it can motivate people to buy earlier because they feel like they're getting something extra, and they can feel welcome as part of that. So that's one that could really be helpful with growing new audiences. Those are a couple ideas to think about.
Super. Maria Jose, you had another question, which is in the chat. I don't know if you want to make it, or do you want me to pass it on? Am I frozen?
Yo no te entendí, Pauli, lo que dijiste, perdón.
Ok, sí, mi conexión está un poco inestable. María José, dejaste una pregunta en el chat. ¿La quieres hacer tú o se la hago a Eric? Mejor hazla tú, ¿no?
Yes, another question. My question was, if you have some data about the consumption of products for digital channels, like a performance thrown by a digital channel, because in the pandemic, we started to showcase the shows by our digital channels, and that is how we survived. But now we have seen that these statistics of views are going down every time and going down. That will be a good question to know what is happening in the US and England.
Yeah, it's very similar. It seemed like we reached sort of a saturation point. It was really lots of viewership during the depths of the pandemic because people didn't have a lot of other things to do. And now that people are getting back to their more normal ways, how they spend their time, they just don't have the same ability or time to watch these kind of things. So we've actually seen a lot of organizations really grappling with how they use digital, or if they still do it, because it's, for many, it's very expensive to do, and if they're not seeing growth there. So some organizations are starting to use it really as a new audience building tool. So they might, instead of doing all of their operas, maybe they just do 1 or 2 a year, and then try to get it out there to get new people to watch that. So this is one of the things we also noticed is very few people asked for viewers to sign up to view the digital programming. I think that the thought was, we just want to get as many people to view as possible. The problem with that is you don't get to know those people, so you can't ask them back to do more things. So I think, especially in the States, organizations are trying to be more thoughtful about asking you to sign up and register to get a link to watch something digital, and then using that to say, oh, great, Paulina just watched our opera. We're now going to give her a 20% off voucher to buy a ticket to come see the next performance we have. So really using that as a tool to expand, but then also build in a strategy to ask those people to come back and do something else. So that's where it's sort of morphing to in North America in other ways. Yeah. But collect the data, ask people to sign up is really important.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Eric. I don't know if there's any other questions because we are reaching the hour now. So if anyone else wants to add something. If not, I would like, well, como les comentamos, la presentación que mostró Eric se las vamos a compartir a los que participaron, al igual que la grabación de esta charla, que de hecho voy a dejar de grabar ahora. Y